You ever get ready to go someplace and you're going out the house, you're getting ready to go out the door, and you say, "I'm forgetting something." Something. You feel that something isn't right, or you feel I'm forgetting something, and then you do a quick check and you run out anyway because you got everything. Then once you get to your destination, sometime later, I didn't bring my phone, or I didn't bring my wallet, or I didn't bring my scarf, or I didn't bring my socks. Right? What was that was telling you while you were leaving, going out the door, that something was wrong? Who was that? I'll tell you what it was. It was the fact that your brain is such a unique, calculating computer of remembrance. It knows exactly where you're going. Once you start signaling that you're going out the door, you start picking up your socks or putting on your hat or your tie or putting your wallet together. Your brain then calculates what your next move ought to be, that you ought to also pick up your iPhone, or you ought to pick up your eyeglasses, or et cetera. It calculates, and it's trying to tell you, you need to pick those. That's how marvelous your brain is. It has learned your habits, and it knows, you can almost put yourself on self-drive, autopilot, if you will, because your brain knows what you need to do. Now, obviously, there are places you go that are strange, that are unfamiliar. There's circumstances and days that your brain has no idea, but it can quickly adapt to that as well. But remember that your brain already knows things. The problem is that whether you're willing now to say, okay, I'm going to listen to Pastor Manning, because each time I listen to him, I learn 7 new things every day I listen to him. And one of the reasons why that you learn 7 new things, and that also by learning those new things, it increases your brain cell activity. You begin to use more of your brain than you're presently using. I suppose most people only use, of 100% of their brain cell capacity, only use about 7%. We're talking adults in their 80s. And so we're suggesting, well, by the end of this year, 2022, you would increase your brain cell activity through listening to me by another 7%. You'll be up to 14% and potentially up to 21%. You'll be a genius. You'll be walking on water. But here's some things that, so that when you're getting ready to go out the door, your brain knows it. Your brain knows your habits. It knows when you put on something, where you're going. It does. And it knows if you leave something behind. It'll try to tell you, try to signal you. Many times you reject it. Here, let me say this as well. I need to say this. I have to. It's important to you that I say this. You need to learn how to understand the benefit and the increase in intellectual strength and power by giving, but more specifically by tithing. That's a part of your spiritual, if you will, makeup and first fruit offerings that you've not tapped into yet. Now listen to me very carefully. Listen to me. Listen to me. Your brain knows that you are leaving your iPhone or you're leaving your socks and you're on your way to a meeting. It knows it, and it tries to tell you. It tries to tell you. God knows that when you learn to be obedient to his command to tithe, that you increase in your knowledge, your abilities, and your power. You become a smarter person. Now, you don't know that because you think that you have learned, rather, get all you can, then can all you get, and then sit on the can. You have not learned the benefit. Forget about that God will return unto you and pull you out a blessing so much so you won't have room enough to receive when you tithe. Forget about that. And that's going to happen. But something emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, maturely, naturally happens to you when you elevate to the point of tithing. If you've never been in love before, you don't know what it is. You hear people talk about it, but it never happened to you. But once it happens to you, you go to a realm that you've never been to. You've heard people talk about it, but you've never been in that realm before. I'm telling you, you are stunting. Forget about God's going to prosper you. You're going to open up the windows of heaven, pull you out a blessing so much so you won't have room enough to receive. But you listen to me. You want to learn something new today? You want to learn that your brain, when you get up in the morning, your brain knows where you should go, what you should do. And if you don't do some of the things that you're supposed to do, your brain will try to tell you, like a computer. It'll try to remind you. That's because you have ventured into those things, and you will not walk out the house without your phone or without your socks or without your iPad. But when you learn to tithe, 10% of your income, come hell or high water, come hell or high rent. When you learn to tithe, that elevates you as a human by God's command, by the way. This is not something that's willy-nilly. By God's command, that elevates you to a level of understanding, both financially, emotionally, that you can't get to if you don't follow that command to tithe. I can say it over again. I think you get the idea. And if you're beginning to understand that the act of tithing, 10% of your income, no matter what, hospital bill, rent due, car note, first the tithe, because everything else gets paid by you giving the tithe. When you learn that lesson, it expands your brain cell capacity. And by the way, this is not something I'm suggesting. This is something that God says throughout his word, the Old Testament, the New Testament, every place else. God says this because he knows this is the way you learn. You grow, you increase by tithing. And to not do it restricts your growth. It restricts your financial capacity, and it just restricts you intellectually. And the more you do it, the more powerful you become. So, and the blessings that will come, Jesus says, the blessings that will come as a result of the tithe, that you will not have room enough to receive them. That's what God said. God don't lie. Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 through 10. God does not lie. He does not lie. Imagine this, a person who doesn't tithe, who has read in God's word, where it said, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, saith the Lord of hosts, and prove me now herewith, when I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing so much so you will not have room enough to receive. Now imagine the stubborn little child who says, I don't believe God, and I'm not going to do it. I don't believe God, I'm not going to do it. And that's putting it mildly. To go to the other end of it, when you know the scripture says, bring you all the tithes into the storehouse and prove me now herewith, if I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing so much so you won't have room enough to receive. It's to say, God, you're lying. You're not going to do that for me. Mr. Engineer, put that up. Thank you very much. God says, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse that there might be, by tithe, I mean 10% of your income, not 9%, not 5%, not $10. If you make $1,000 a week, it's $100. If you make $2,000, it's $2,000, it's $200. But bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there might be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. To not do it is just to be a stubborn little child. And stubborn children don't get blessed, not by their parents or not by anybody else. But the other end of that is to say, God, you're lying. You are not going to bless me if I tithe. You are not going. You say you're going to do it, but God, you are lying. Which at that point then brings a curse. Mr. Engineer, show them the verse 8 and 9 where it says, if you call God a liar, he will curse you. If you call God a liar and you don't tithe. Now listen, I told you, you can learn 7 new things a day. Every day you listen to me. I told you if you walk out the house and forget your keys or the umbrella, your brain is going to tell you. Your brain is going to tell you, because you've had that experience. The brain, like a calculating computer, has expanded to the point where it will help you pick up the things so you don't go out and you say, oh, I got everything, and you run on out the door anyway and discover once you go out the door, you don't have your computer or your calculator or whatever it is. But here, listen, when you tithe, it accelerates and elevates you. And God says that he will bless you. You saw in Malachi chapter 3, verse 10, that he will bless you. But if you say, God, you're lying, or I don't believe you, or like a stubborn little 5-year-old, you just stubborn and stubborn and stubborn and stubborn and say, I'm not going to do it, then God curses you. There is no demilitarized zone on the way you handle your money before God. There is no demilitarized zone. That is to say, there is no middle ground. Either you tithe and God bless you, or you don't tithe and God curse you. Verse 9, you are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Now, the tithe is 10%. It is not 9%. It's not 5%. It is 10%. There is no middle ground. In other words, there is no other option. There is no plan B. Either you tithe and God will bless you, or you don't tithe and God will curse you. And either one. If you say, I'm not going to tithe, then God's not going to curse me. God takes the tithe personally. He takes it personal to him. He says, you've robbed me when you don't tithe. Talking about God, talking about him. He takes it personal. He takes that in the Sabbath, he takes personal. Those are two personal things that God takes. I don't know if there are any preachers listening to me. I don't know if there are any longtime church members listening to me. Have you ever heard this before? Oh, you've heard people talk about the tithes. You reject them right out of hand. You just go to sleep. You wait till the preacher shuts up because you're not going to do it. You already made up your mind. You ain't going to do it. I don't care what he says. You're not going to do it. You're not going to give no preacher 10% of your money. You're not going to do it. Right? But now you're hearing something, are you not? When I put it in the biblical truth that by doing so, you increase, you grow. Your brain cell capacity increases as one of the blessings. You've always seen tithe as the devil looks from the devil's point of view, trying to take something from you. The devil said, preacher trying to rob you. No, what the devil was not telling you is that the preacher's not robbing you. You're robbing God. You see that? You see how you're learning things? Come on, preachers. Come on, people of the church. Come on, you're learning, right? You said, oh, money grabbing preacher trying to rob me. No, that's the devil talking. God says when you don't do it, you are robbing him. The real robber is you, not the preacher. The real thief is you, not the preacher. And I have to tell you, I've had people steal money from me. It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't. I can never have a faithful, true relationship with a person who has stolen money from me ever again. I can't trust them. No matter, they say, well, I'm sorry, I never do it again. They said, okay, that's good and fine, gotta go, let's go on about our business. But that level of trust is never there. And you rob God every time you get an income. Every time you get a paycheck, you rob God. Do you think he trusts you? Remember, this teaches trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not to thine own understanding, and all thy ways acknowledge him. And by the way, there's no excuse such as I gotta pay the rent or I gotta buy food. That does not cut it. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just trying to tell you, trust God. Just trust him. If he says tithe before the rent, and he does, before the hospital bill, before the gas bill, do it. Just do it. Just do it and be blessed. And, so you can learn 7 new things. You've heard about the tithe before, but you've just rejected it out of hand. You ain't giving no preacher no 10% of your money. Ain't going to happen. But you have to realize there's no middle ground. Either you're going to do it and God's going to bless you, or you're telling God, I believe you. I believe your word. The thing I find about many people who don't tithe, first of all, most of them is poor, living from hand to mouth. But the other thing is that confounds me is that then they ask God to do something for them. There is something wrong with either your religious training or the way your parents raised you when you just sit there every day and always take and don't give. Do you believe the world will be best exemplified if everybody did what you did? Just take and take and take. And obviously, I'm talking about me. I'm talking about tithing to the ATLAH ministry. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking out of the top of my head because you come to this ministry every day. It isn't something that is not important to you. It isn't something that's not edifying to you. It isn't something that you're not being blessed by. You come every day. But either your childhood training, your parents, or somebody did not train you, or you just developed a stubborn streak. There's nothing more distasteful than a stubborn 5-year-old. You ever see him? Ever see him in the supermarket? Ever see a stubborn 5-year-old at church? Ever see a stubborn little child in school? There is nothing more distasteful. There is nothing uglier than a stubborn child. You tell a child to do something and they just tell you, I'm not going to do it. There's a commercial on television where the family, the mother and the father, are sitting at the table with their daughter, and they push the broccoli plate over to the little child, the girl, and tells her to eat it. She's like 9, 10 years old, and she said, "I'm not going to eat that." The mother says, well, if you don't eat it, you're going to have to stay here. You have to stay here at the table till you eat it. She said, well, I'll sleep here. There's nothing uglier than that. You've probably seen that commercial on television. There's nothing uglier than a stubborn child. Nothing. Because it's so unnecessary. Because The parent is not trying to harm the child. The parent is trying to give the child the broccoli so the child can grow up strong and healthy. And yet the child is refusing something good that the parent is doing for them. And what I've seen in churches, and many of you that listen to me every day, like stubborn 9-year-old children, just won't do it. Just ain't gonna do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. It's just stubborn. It isn't that, you're not saying that God will not bless you. Of course, you are saying that vicariously. But the first thing off of your heart and your spirit, I'm not gonna do it. Just stubborn. Just stubborn. And what you need to understand is that if the child ate the broccoli, now it may not necessarily be something that's appeasing as mac and cheese, which is what ultimately the child wants. But the broccoli is good for the child. The broccoli is good for the child. And the child should obey the parent, whether they like the taste of the broccoli or not. The child's responsibility as a child and the relationship as a child and a parent. Eat the broccoli. Eat the broccoli. Be a good child. But you know, that stubbornness leaves the dinner table and then shows up in the classroom with Miss Robinson when she's trying to teach. Or shows up later on in life and other experiences. It just keeps, that stubborn, it just keeps showing up. Because once the child gets away with being stubborn, that's what the motif they're going to operate under from this time on. From now on, what I'm trying to say. So the concept of you learning something new. Now today you've been challenged. You don't have learned something now that your brain capacity can do more and can help you more, can tell you when you're getting ready to walk out the door, you're leaving your keys, you're leaving your laptop, and it'll tell you. There can be developed a sense about, I don't think I'm going to do this today. I don't think you may have a bad feeling about something. Your brain is trying to tell you something it already knows, because the brain is a marvelous organ that God's given to all of us. But most people just never develop it. But the thing I want you to take away from this teaching today is that tithing expands. It makes you smarter. Not only does it make you wealthier and more powerful and resilient to poverty, but it educates you. You become elevated. Your understanding becomes increased. And you're now willing to go a little bit further with Jesus. You say, all these years I have been rebellious to God. I've been rebellious to his word. Look at how much I have lost. And look at all the ugly things that have happened in my life, the sicknesses that happened in my life, my loss of friendship, my loss of responsibility, my loss of trust. People don't trust me because I don't trust God, and I'm getting back what I give out. I'm not getting promoted. I'm not happy. I'm disturbed. All of these are just curses that God has put on you. And they're there every day. Because you say to God, either, I hear what you say about the tithe, but I ain't going to do it. I'm not going to do it, you may say. Or God says, I will bless you. I will open up the windows of heaven, pour you out a blessing so much so you won't have room enough to receive. You say, God, you're lying. So those of you who come every day, and I'm not trying to run anybody away. I'm not trying to, but what good is it to educate you and you never turn around and say thank you? Jesus had an event in the Gospels where there were 10 lepers that were sick and dying of leprosy. And, it's a horrible disease, leprosy. And they called out to Jesus, and he stopped. And he spoke healing over their lives. Now, the law regarding leprosy, according to Moses, that Jesus followed, by the way, parenthetically, all these people who say that Jesus didn't keep the law, Jesus no longer under the law, all this misinterpretation of Paul, Jesus understood that as far as leprosy was concerned, it was a little different from healing a blind eye or even raising the dead. Moses wrote in the law that the priests of the day had to declare you were clean. Even Jesus himself didn't do it, couldn't do it. So Jesus said to the 10 lepers, I speak healing, but I don't have the last word. The law of Moses says you have to show yourself to the priest. And they said, now go show yourself to them. And all 10 of them left. So even Jesus respected the law. Now, tithing is a law. There's a lot of people running around here talking about we don't have to keep the law no more. We're under grace. It's not true. It's the devil speaking. But Jesus told those 10 lepers to go, and the law of Moses says, show yourself to the priest. And they went to the priest, and the priest pronounced them clean. But the incident of the story was that only one of the lepers came back to say thank you. And Jesus said, but where are the 9? And the one leper said, I don't know, but I thank you. I would like to think about you, some of you, as, I know you're going through a whole lot of stuff, and troubles just keep piling up everywhere you look, everywhere you turn, you can't get a break. Everywhere you can't get a breakthrough. God's not going to let you get a breakthrough. You can shuck and jive with Pastor Manning all you want. You can dislike him, except for his teaching, because it really is beneficial to you. But when it comes to that money thing, that tithe and that 10% thing, it's shucking and jiving time. And you can do that all you want with me. I can't see you. But God sees you. God knows you, and you got trouble coming at you every which kind of way. Bad diagnosis coming at you, bad diagnosis from other family members coming at you. You got situations that you're facing. It just keeps right on coming like a tsunami. It's God's curse. It's his curse. There is no middle ground. There is no neutrality where you say, well, I'll just give what I want. I'll do what I feel is right in my own eyes. Then you don't need God anymore. And if everybody did what's right in their own eyes, there are a lot of people think it's right to whack you or to kill you or to cheat you. You're trying to buy an insurance policy, they'll sell it to you for more than they should. Buying a house, buying a car. They will cheat you because they feel, well, I'll just do what's right in my own eyes. They sell you a bad piece of meat, or they'll take your home because they want to do what's right in their own eyes. You can't live that way. You can't say, well, I'll just give what I want to give. I'll do what's right in my own eyes. If it doesn't meet the tithe requirement, then if everybody did that, then we'd all be in big trouble. There has to be an organizational structure. There has to be. And you're never going to get out from underneath the hammer and the anvil that you're carrying around your neck every day. I tell you something, you can believe this or not. You reap what you sow. You don't tithe, you're cursed. I don't care who your mama is, who your daddy was. You reap what you sow. And if you sow the tithe, then God's going to cause you to reap the blessings. If you rob God, God's going to send somebody to rob you. Or the devil will send them. They're going to rob you. You can learn something. 7 new things every day. Start tithing and never look back. Before your rent, that's right, before your rent, before your food, Never fail to tithe. You know, I've told this before, that on the airline, I was on the airline many, many years ago, and the airline, the flight attendant would come down the aisle and they say, well, here's the instruction before we take off. And then the cup would say, now in the event of a loss of oxygen, a cup from overhead will drop below. And if you're carrying a baby with you, put the cup on your face first. Then put it on the baby next. The normal, if you will, instinct of people, if there's no longer oxygen on the plane, is to put the cup on the babies first. But the baby gonna fight. And while you're trying to put the cup on the babies first, you die for lack of oxygen, and both you and the baby die. But the airline people were smart enough to say this: pay your tithe before your rent. Pay your tithe before your doctor bill. Pay your tithe before the food. Because if you put the mask on your face first, though you love your baby, you don't want to see your baby die. You love your baby. But if you don't put it on your face first, both of y'all going to die. And that's what the airline practice is right to this very day. You can learn 7 new things every day. Your life does not have to be, you don't have to walk out the door without what you need. You learn to tithe. Stop being stubborn. Stop it. Stop it. And you'll never walk out the door spiritually without the covering of God on your life. Without the tithe, you don't have the covering of God. Without the tithe, you don't have God's covering. You've got his curse, I guarantee you. I guarantee you. I show it to you in the word. Without the tithe, you got his curse, not his covering. With the tithe, you'll never walk out the door again. You'll never face humanity. You'll never face another circumstance in life without the covering of God. I'm going to take a break, and I'll be right back.
What is one of your favorite meals that you have had here?
Burgers and fries.
The food's delicious.
The rice and the chicken and cornbread.
As it should.
The food is wonderful. You see it made in the kitchen. They have sandwiches, soups, waffles.
Everything.
Everything.
It's always gourmet breakfast made fresh every day. I personally love Sister Leah's eggs. It is amazing. I can't even begin to fathom the airy taste. Literally, guys, a couple days ago, I was by the kitchen and I was just, the eggs was just really good. It was really good. Really good.
Agree with that statement.
Really good.
What do you think about Pastor Manning? How do you like it?
I feel like Pastor is a very great man. He's honest. He's giving, and he likes to help the younger ones become future leaders.
Yes.
I feel like that's a great trait because now people nowadays, they don't really care about others. They care about themselves. They have the trait to care for somebody else, to listen to their problems and help them grow as another person. It's rare to find, and I feel like that's a great trait about him.
Maro mihitsy olo miteny. Maro zany le olo miteny fa misy sasany miteny izy zanakanao lera za tsy mahavoataiza ny mihitsy. De eka oa, fanjara koa izy ty fa de fa tezaiko foana fa ataoko zay mahabe anazy.
It is a belief that a cleft can be a curse, so often even from when they're born, they are rejected children.
Efa voateraka izy, efa hitany ma izy nisy problème, de izy niteny hoe tsy zanako, hoe mitaranaka anay tsisy an'io. De izy bokoa lasa, de juste raha vaviko amizay zao nanampinampy anakaty.
If we can change her life early when she's still young, then she can just live a normal life and be a normal person, and it will make a massive difference to her whole life. It's not just the physical appearance, it's being able to eat and also speech.
Mety gaga donc olo mahita anazy amizao io.
this is about really changing people's lives. It's not just a few individuals, it's individuals that make up communities. They can be re-established in their village a lot easier when they look more normal.
If the Lord let me, next time we get together, because my time is almost up for today, I want to tell you about an experience I had with respect to what God has said in the book of Deuteronomy, starting chapter 6, and where God says you're going to live in houses that you didn't build, drink from wells that you didn't dig, eat from fruit and vine trees that you didn't plant. All these wonderful things are going to be given unto you. I want to get to that. But God withdrew his covenant with the people that I was dealing with because they refused to tithe. They refused to keep the Sabbath. They refused to tithe, and God withdrew his covenant. But in the few minutes I have left today, I want to read to you some scripture to undergird, to move you from that stubborn spirit, that rejecting spirit, that in many ways thinking that you can bamboozle God, and and all these troubles are on you constantly because you don't tithe. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. It says, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God." Now, the Lord thy God have chosen thee to be a special people, ATLAH. To be a special people unto himself, above all that are on the face of the earth. Now, God said this to the first slaves. These are slaves. God is saying this to people who were just a few years ago were slaves in Egypt. And he's saying to these former slaves for 400 years that God chose you to be a special people unto himself. You know, there's nobody else on the earth like you. Now, when we get back, we're going to show you how God is saying the same thing to the people of ATLAH, that God has chosen ATLAH as a special people unto himself, as a special people unto himself. And he has sent me to fight the devil. He has sent me with the sword to cut off his head. When you see me and you hear me coming or speaking or sleeping or riding or walking, understand this, that the devil fears me because he knows I will cut off his head. But the other thing is that he knows how to steal the hearts of people. The Bible says he's not only a liar, but he's a thief. And he steals people, especially if they're young. Especially if they're young. But for ATLAH, God has said that we are a special people unto himself. So much so that in the land he's given to us, we can take off our shoes and walk barefoot. Let me read verse 7. "The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any other people." We don't have a big church. We don't have a Joel Osteen church. No, we don't have that. We don't have these thousands upon thousands of, no, we don't have that. And that's not the reason why God chose us. God didn't choose us because we can compete with Joel Osteen when it comes to numbers, or T.D. Jakes, or one of them. No. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any people. For you are fewer, or the fewest of all people. And everyone who looks around the ATLAH Church, put it on the screen, everyone who looks around the ATLAH Church and see that we are fewer in number. And the devil tries to say to you that God would never choose the few. The devil would say to you, God would never choose to you the few. Some people think that if you're just a few, then God will have nothing to do with you. Kind of rhymes, doesn't it? But God chose us, though we are fewer in number. That's the reason why God chose you. God doesn't look at, oh, you got a mega church and therefore this and that and the other. No, sir. you were more in number, for you were the fewest of all people. But because, verse 8, but because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he has sworn unto your fathers, have the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments on tithing. I'm explaining that. To 1,000 generations. On the commandment of the Sabbath and the tithe, he repayeth them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him, and he will repay him to his face. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes, keep the tithe, keep the Sabbath, and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them. Wherefore, if it shall come to pass, if you hearken to these judgments and keep them and do them, that the Lord thy God will keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto thy fathers. And he will love thee and bless thee and multiply. ATLAH, listen to this. ATLAH, listen to this. Yes, we're fewer in numbers, but listen to this. ATLAH, listen to this. He will love us and bless us and multiply us. And he will also bless the fruit of our womb and the fruit of the land, thy corn, thy wine, thine oil, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep in the land. ATLAH, 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 which he sware unto our fathers to give thee. Thou shalt be blessed above all people. There shall not be a male or female barren among you or among your cattle. ATLAH, ATLAH, ATLAH. That's what God has promised us. And I'm his pastor. You need to just eat the broccoli and be blessed. You know, don't be that stubborn child any longer. And you have to witness that you're learning, you're being helped, you're being told the truth. And one of the reasons why you learn 7 new things every day when you listen to me is because, it's not because I'm so brilliant, but it's because I speak the truth. And you have lived in a world of lies. You go to churches full of lies, pulpit full of lies, preachers full of lies, tongue talkers lying in tongues. It's true. It's true. The whole church is full of lies. The ushers, liars. The deacons, liars. The preachers, liars. And lying on the word, lying on the Bible. The members sit next to you, liars. The reason why you learn so much here is because simply I just speak the truth. But you've grown up in a world of lies. It is so critical, it's so important that we be able to bring this lesson today as we continue to encourage you in God's word. You know this, take this away from you take this with you as you go, until you are willing to obey God's command, his statutes, his ordinances. And the big ones, of course, is the Sabbath and the tithe. Don't ever expect God to answer a prayer or to help you. Be logical if you don't want to be spiritual or honest. God has commanded you to tithe. He's commanded you to keep the Sabbath, and you don't do either. Yet he commands you to do something, you don't do it, but when you have a need, you think he's going to help you. He hasn't helped you. And he's not going to help you. If you want to turn your situation around, just logically conclude, why do I expect God to help me when I won't obey his commandments? He has commanded me to tithe. And I won't do it. That's what you would say. I don't say that. But how illogical it is. It doesn't make, I mean, the devil has got a hold on you. If you think that God is going to help you and you disobey his commandments, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to hurt you. Your tithing, every time you get $1, 10 cents ought to come to this ministry. Every time. Every time. Every time you get 100, $10 ought to come. Every time you get 1,000, $100 ought to come. Every time. Before the rent. Before the food. There's an example in the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 17 where the prophet Elijah goes to the widow woman of Zarephath's house. And there's a famine in the land. There's a famine in the land. And all the food is gone. And Elijah's the one that called the famine. And God sends him to this widow's house. And she's got a little meal in a barrel and a little oil in the cruse. And that's all she's got. And she's going to cook that, feed her son, and she and her son will eat that, and then they'll sit and wait to die. Elijah comes. She don't know it's coming. He tells her, you got a little oil, a little meal, make that cake. You're only going to get one cake out of that, but give that cake to me. Let me eat that cake before you or your son eat anything. I mean, most people think that is absolutely ridiculous, that a prophet would say that, to feed me before you feed your children and yourself in a famine. And that's all you have to your name. That's all you have in the world. But she did it. And the Bible says when she went back to her barrel after the prophet ate, there was more meal in the barrel and more oil in the cruse. In fact, every time she went there, the barrel was full and the cruse was too, because she gave to the prophet first. Your tithe before your rent, your mortgage, your doctor bill. Your tithe before your food bill. And God will always make sure there's oil in your cruse and meal in your barrel. I'm thankful to the Lord. I've been able to teach this successfully over the past 14 years. The Lord let me get back. I'll have more to say about living in houses that you didn't have to build, and drinking from wells that you did not dig, eating from fruit and vine trees that you did not plant. But I'm James Everett Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant.